Hello, B4 class. Sorry I couldn't be there today with you, but what I have done is I've actually made my lesson and I've recorded it and put it on YouTube so that you could get the same lesson as if I was there, so we won't get behind in class. What you'll do is you'll take your guided notes and fill in the answers as we go through the lesson, just as if I was doing the PowerPoint with you in class. So today we're going to be talking about Daoism. And Taoism is one of the big religions in China. And so, one of the first ways to understand Taoism is to talk about one of Taoism's greatest philosophers, and that would be Winnie the Pooh. And so we laugh because Winnie the Pooh is, a familiar kids character. And, basically we wouldn't think of him as being a religious philosopher, but in a lot of ways it makes sense to Taoism. Because Taoism is going to be about simplicity, and we'll talk more about that. But if you would describe Winnie the Pooh, you would say that he's this very happy-go-lucky, happy bear. And he basically goes about his life just enjoying every day. And while everyone else is worried about everything, he just is happy. And he's carefree. And he'll even tell you that he's a bear with a little brain. So he's not the smartest bear in the world, but he's okay with that. He has true inner happiness. And that's a big part of Taoism. So we'll come back to Winnie the Pooh throughout the lesson. But just remember, we can learn a lot about Taoism through Winnie the Pooh. So what is the Tao? What is Taoism? Well, Tao basically means the way. And that's kind of a funny way to say basically the universe. Taoists, or people that follow Taoism, say that you can't really understand the Tao. That it's not something you can put a label on or make words and describe it, because it basically means the entire universe and everything as it is. So if I tried to ask you to describe the universe, you'd have a pretty hard time describing it because it's everything. And that's what Taoism is. Taoists believe. And so they believe that when you try to understand it, when you look at it too hard and try to label it, you actually lose the meaning of it, and it confuses you. It confuses things. And I know this is a hard concept to get at first, but it's going to make sense as we go through the lesson. So if you've ever seen the movie Fight Club with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, they basically create this underground fight club. And what does Brad Pitt tell Edward Norton? The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Because if you talk about it, it doesn't exist. You can't really describe it. That's not the rules of Fight Club. The same thing goes for Taoism. The first rule of Taoism is you shouldn't talk about Taoism. And if you talk about it, you really don't understand what it is. So I know I probably just blew your mind right now, but it's going to make sense as we go along, I hope. So, basically, what is Taoism? What can I actually tell you? And I start off with that smart aleck comment, Taoism just is. Yeah, and that's really what Taoists think. Taoism is just how the universe works. We shouldn't describe it, and we should let it be. But we can actually put a couple labels on it. For one thing, it's a philosophy, or a way of thinking about life. And it can also be considered a religion, because it's basically a guidelines for your daily existence. And they do have temples and religious sites in China for Taoism. But also, a lot of Taoists just live their life and try to find the Tao through basically just living a good life. So it's also a philosophy. The big thing I want you to remember is it focuses on the simplicity of life and the idea of balance. And we'll get to that more in the lesson. It's also one of the three schools of thought that came out of ancient China. We talked about one already with Confucius and Confucianism. That's when we did our fortune cookie activity. Well, this is the second of three schools of thought that came out of China. So, where did it start? Well, many people believe that Taoism started with this guy named Lao Tzu. And to be honest with you, historians don't even know if the man ever really lived or not. They're not even sure if he was a real person. And a true Taoist would say it doesn't matter if he was real or not, because Taoism just is. And we shouldn't have to have a founder of it for it to exist. Kinda crazy, I know, but basically, though, people say Lao Tzu, if he was real, he's usually shown as an old, kindly, happy go lucky man who was always laughing and smiling, and he traveled around China on his water buffalo. Crazy, but basically, he was just this happy old guy. And he went around telling stories. And because these stories tell us about what Taoism is, he put them in a book called the Tao Te Ching. And that's the word there at the bottom of your page, Tao Te Ching. And it's a collection of stories that basically tell us how we should live our lives. But it doesn't say this is exactly what Taoism is. He even tells us, I can't explain Taoism, and the person that tries to doesn't know what it is. So he says these stories just tell us that we should be happy with the world. We should just live our lives. And if you think about it, Winnie the Pooh teaches us this. Winnie the Pooh is always so happy-go-lucky while everyone else is so scared things are going to go wrong. But in the end, good things happen to Pooh Bear because he accepts them just for the way they are. And that's really what the Tao Te Ching tells us. And then we come to this whole idea of a yin-yang. And what is a yin-yang? And we know that it's this, black and white symbol. But what does it mean? Well, yin literally means the shady place. And yang means the sunny place. So yang is the white part, yin is the black part. But it's not just about white and black. It's about balance in the universe, balance in the world. So it's this idea of opposites, like light, dark, good and bad, up and down. And if we think about the world around us, it's everywhere. Young, old, smart, stupid, pretty, ugly, sky, earth, water, trees. There's all these different opposites in the world, but they all balance together to create the universe. And that's why the yin-yang is the religious symbol of Taoism. And it's all about balance. So this slide shows us that if we want trees, we need water. Because trees use the water for nutrients to grow. And trees give us oxygen. And this oxygen is what allows us to live on Earth. And so the world around us is balanced. It's when people try to do things to change this balance that things go wrong. So Lao Tzu would say all of humans' problems come from us trying to change the balance of the universe. So when we build a house on a beach and it gets swept away by a hurricane, it's not the hurricane's fault. That's part of nature. We should have accepted that building a house on a beach was a bad idea. And that could fix a lot of our problems in the world, according to Lao Tzu. And basically the lesson of Taoism is, there's a story in Taoism of a duck that has short legs, and if we try to stretch them out, it's going to cause the duck pain. And there's also a swan or a crane, and if we try to shorten his legs, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to cause him pain. So what should we do? We should leave nature the way it is. And we shouldn't try to change the way nature is. And I'm not just talking about nature as in animals and trees. I'm talking about also yourself. Think of it this way. How often do you change your clothes? Your hairstyle? How often do you try to lose weight just to fit in with everyone else? You're changing the nature of who you are. Think of Winnie the Pooh. He's a fat bear, but he's a happy fat bear, and good things happen to him. He loves eating honey, so why should he have to go on a diet and not eat honey? He's a bear. He's supposed to eat honey, and honey makes him fat. There's nothing wrong with that, Lao Tzu would say. It's all part of nature. So when we do things like build a dam, this is the Three Gorges Dam in China that we talked about. What would Lao Tzu think? Would say it was crazy because we were changing the earth around us, and bad things happen when we do this. Remember, this dam caused 1 million people to have to leave their homes because we were trying to make the world better. And it also has killed the Yangtze river dolphin that we saw before. All because we try to change the world. And according to Lao Tzu, this is foolish. What does he say about government? A strong government is not simple, and it disrupts the balance of things. So he doesn't accept a strong government. He doesn't support that. He believes that humans should just live the way we are. And if we do have leaders, they're best known when they're barely seen. And when they work hard, the people should do the things they do themselves and not need to rely on a leader or a strong government. This is very different from what Confucius was telling us. So remember, Lao Tzu in Daoism doesn't like a strong government. So what about Daoism in the world today? Well, there's about 2.7 million Taoists in the world today, and they have religious shrines and temples all over the world. And it's very alive in China today. The problem is, because China is a communist country, we don't know exactly how many Taoists live in China. And just think about it. Taoism, if it's the whole universe and accepting life as it is and being happy and balanced, well then there's a lot of people out there that are Taoist and probably wouldn't even say that they were Taoist. And the funny thing is, a true Tao master says that he can't talk about Taoism. He won't call himself a Taoist. And only when he does that does he actually truly know the Tao. Kind of crazy to think, but that's how this whole religion kind of operates. They're in tune with nature and the balance of life, and they accept that as it is. So I know I went through this really quick because I had a limited amount of time that I could record the lesson. So if you have questions, don't worry. When I get back on Wednesday, we'll talk about it in class. And we'll do a quick review of what Taoism is. I'll share some more stories. We may even watch Winnie the Pooh if we have time and try to understand Taoism. So for now, if you missed a couple questions on your guided notes, no problem. Turn it in anyway so I can look at it, and we'll go from there. You have a reading as well on Taoism, and this one has Taoism spelled with a T. That's just how the author did it. So go ahead and do your reading. It'll tell you a little bit more about Taoism. Fill out your answer sheets, and then you're going to have time today to work on projects. So you may get to go to Mr. Snell's room and get out some project materials. When I get back, we'll talk about Taoism and everything else and make sure everyone's doing well. So thank you for listening to my lecture, and I hope you all have a good day, and I will see you Wednesday. Take care.